This is going to be a homework walkthrough video for chapter 2-1. I know there's other videos out there for some of the problems in this assignment. In this video, I will go through each question 1 through 4. So starting with question 1, and just real quick, we're getting into predetermined overhead rate, which the formula for that is estimated total manufacturing overhead cost divided by estimated total amount of the allocation base. The allocation base is usually direct labor hours or machine hours. It's whatever they're basing their costing system on. And then remember the formula for calculating this top number, this estimated total manufacturing overhead cost. They put in the book this formula y equals a plus bx. So we all feel like we've gone back to math class. Y is what we're going for, right? The estimated total manufacturing overhead cost. A is the fixed manufacturing total. B is the estimated variable manufacturing overhead cost per unit of the allocation base. And X is the estimated total amount of the allocation base. So in this problem, it's going to be direct labor hours. And so my top number is going to be my fixed plus my variable times my estimated direct labor hours. And that will become more apparent as we go through. So first of all, I've got to find all of the important information in all these words. So Tech Solutions is a consulting firm that uses a job order costing system. Its direct materials consist of hardware and software that it purchases and installs on behalf of its clients. The firm's direct labor includes salaries of consultants that work at the client's job site, and its overhead consists of costs such as depreciation, utilities, and insurance related to the office headquarters, as well as the office supplies that are consumed serving clients. So pretty all-inclusive. Tech Solutions computes its predetermined overhead rate annually, so once a year, on the basis of direct labor hours. So direct labor hours is our allocation base in this problem. At the beginning of the year, it estimated that 52,500 direct labor hours would be required. So I'm going to put that right here, 52,500 estimated direct labor hours for the period's estimated level of client service. The company also estimated 262,500 of fixed overhead costs. So here's my fixed, 262,500 for the coming period, and variable overhead of 50 cents per direct labor hour. So 0.50, 50 cents per direct labor hour. The firm's actual overhead cost for the year was 283,300. So here's my actual. And its actual total direct labor was 57,850. 57,850. Okay. Now, that's great. I pulled out all my important numbers. Now, what do they want me to figure out? Compute the predetermined overhead rate. So they want me to do this formula. So in Excel, let's see. I'm going to do it this way. I could do it all in one cell, but then I would need to make sure all my parentheses were in exactly the right places, or it could end up with the wrong answer. So I'm going to do it in 2 steps. First, I'm going to figure out this estimated total manufacturing overhead cost. So again, that Y is going to be equal to the fixed portion plus parentheses, the variable of 50 cents times the estimated direct labor hours. Don't get confused and use the actual. That's not part of this problem. So the estimated, close parentheses. Okay, so there's my top number for over here. I haven't come to the answer yet. I still need to do one more step to get that predetermined overhead rate, and that is divided by the estimated total amount of the allocation base. So I'm going to take that estimated total manufacturing overhead that I just figured out and then divide that again by that same estimated direct labor hour total, which comes up to $5.50 per direct labor hour. Now that means that for every hour they work on a job, they're going to charge the customer $5.50. And this was an amount that was decided at the beginning of the year, say, because they only make this calculation once a year, and then they just apply it to jobs across the board that they do throughout the year. Okay, part 2. During the year, Tech Solutions started and completed Xavier Company engagement, which just means the job. The following information was available with respect to the job. So this is straight out of my book. So I just put those numbers here. Direct materials, 43,500. Direct labor cost, 22,000. Direct labor hour worked, 210 hours. So the question is, what is the total job cost for the Xavier Company engagement for jobs? So we just need to add up all the costs, and 2 of the costs they gave us, right? We didn't have to do any calculations. Don't get used to that. Later, you'll have to do those calculations. But for this particular question, my direct materials, they gave me right there. My direct labor, again, they gave me that total right there. Now, overhead applied. Remember, we're basing the manufacturing overhead on direct labor hours, and we figured out in question 1 how much per hour we're going to charge. And so for this answer, it's going to equal those direct labor hours worked from right there times the answer to number required 1, $5.50. Now, my total manufacturing cost for Xavier Company job or engagement is just going to equal the sum of these 3 numbers. So there's required 2. I believe that's everything for question 1. Okay, question 2. Now we've changed gears. We're a totally different company now, but we're going to be doing similar calculations. Tavares Corporation is currently offering at 50% of its available manufacturing capacity. That's nice, but I don't know that that's relevant. It uses a job order costing system with a plant-wide predetermined overhead rate based on machine hours. So right there, there's my allocation base. It's going to be machine hours. At the beginning of the year, the company made the following estimates. So I'm going to put those numbers down here. 255,000 is the machine hours required to support the estimated production, which in our little formula here, that's, wait a minute, I think I labeled that wrong. Yep, I labeled that wrong. That one's actually X, and this one is B, right? That's my allocation base. So that is X in my formula. Fixed manufacturing overhead cost is 5,100,000. Make sure you get enough zeros there. And then variable manufacturing overhead cost per machine hour is $2. And I forgot to remind you, sometimes my numbers are different than yours, but the calculations should be the same. So they want us to compute the plant-wide predetermined overhead rate, and then we're going to talk about job P90, and they give us information for that. So kind of similar to question 1, just step through the process. So again, I'm going to do this in 2 parts. You could put all the calculations in one cell to get straight to the predetermined overhead rate. Just make sure you put all of your parentheses in the right place or you will get the wrong answer. So I'm going to first calculate this estimated total manufacturing overhead cost. and that is going to be equal to my fixed, which is A, plus open parentheses, my variable per allocation base, whatever hour, I don't know, times the estimated machine hours, right? Because machine hours is my allocation base. Okay, so there's my top number here, my estimated total manufacturing overhead cost. So now to get my predetermined overhead rate would equal the estimated total manufacturing overhead costs divided by the machine hours, because the machine hours is my allocation base. So that gives me a predetermined overhead rate of $22 per machine hour. Okay. So that was requirement one. Requirement two, again, during the year, and I typed it in as well as it's up here, copied from the book. During the year, job P90 was started, completed, and sold to the customer for $4,300. The following information was available with respect to this job. So here's my direct materials that they told me, the direct labor cost they told me, and the machine hours used. Okay, what do they want me to figure out? Compute the total manufacturing costs assigned, to job P90. So again, they gave us the total for direct materials. They gave us the total for direct labor. Now overhead applied again is going to be equal to the machine hours, so actual machine hours, times that predetermined overhead rate per machine hour. And then again, we're just going to sum those three numbers, close parentheses, and there's my answer. Okay, that's all of question 2. Question 3. We are now a different company again. And they've given us lots and lots of numbers, and it's going to be really important to read this question very, very carefully. And my fingers are crossed that I don't make any mistakes as we go through this, but I can't guarantee it, but I will catch them if I make them, I promise. Okay, Wilmington Company has 2 manufacturing departments, assembly and fabrication. It considers all of its manufacturing overhead costs to be fixed. The first set of data that is shown below is based on estimates from the beginning of the year. The second set of data relates to one particular job completed during the year, job Bravo. So all of this information was estimated at the beginning of the year. This information is straight from job Bravo. Okay. So I took all of these numbers and put them into where I could access them in Excel and make Excel do the math for me. So this chart right here, right there, and this chart right here is right here. If Wilmington, so required one, if Wilmington used a plant-wide predetermined overhead rate based on direct labor hours, how much manufacturing overhead would be applied to job Bravo? So first I need to figure out my predetermined overhead rate for the plant-wide, which means the totals. And it is based on direct labor hours. They already figured out the estimated total manufacturing overhead cost. So for plant-wide predetermined overhead rate, I just simply need to take the total manufacturing estimated cost divided by the estimated direct labor hours, because that's my allocation base for plant-wide. Okay, so that gives me a plant-wide predetermined overhead rate of $17.50. So plant-wide, let's see, let me read this again, because in this one, each one, it's based on different things, and yeah. So we need to make sure we're using the right numbers. So again, this is based on direct labor hours. So job Bravo plant wide, which is the total, is then going to be equal to that predetermined overhead rate for the plant wide times the total direct labor hours for job Bravo, right? That was right there. Okay, so there's my plant wide manufacturing overhead applied to job Bravo, which was required one. Two, if Wilmington used departmental predetermined overhead rates with direct labor hours as the allocation base in assembly and machine hours as the allocation base in fabrication, how much manufacturing overhead would be applied to job Bravo? Okay, so now we're going to figure out fabrication and assembly predetermined overhead rates, and assembly uses direct labor hours as the allocation base, and fabrication uses machine hours as the fabrication base. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's do assembly first because it's first, and I don't know why I haven't switched here, but so we're going to deal with assembly manufacturing costs now, right? Because we're talking about the assembly department, and that will be divided by direct labor hours because that is my allocation base. Okay, so assembly would then be equal to that $12 predetermined overhead rate times the direct labor hours in assembly. Okay. Now let's do fabrication. Fabrication is based on machine hours. So we're going to take the total fabrication divided by the machine hours to get my predetermined overhead rate for fabrication. And then the manufacturing overhead applied from fabrication to job Bravo is then going to equal that $8 times the machine hours in fabrication, right? No, wrong one. Machine hours for the job Bravo. Sorry, I forgot I was just doing the job Bravo. So just the machine hours in fabrication times the predetermined overhead rate for fabrication. So you can see it matters what the allocation base is. And then the total, if they do departmental, is just going to be the sum of all those numbers. Nope, it's not. Sorry, I included too many numbers in my little thing here. It's just going to be those two last numbers that we figured out, the 132 plus the 48. Yeah, so that it's two scenarios. This is one scenario if we do it by department, and this is the scenario if we do it by the plant wide. So you're going to make more money if you do it the first way. Okay, that's question 3. Question 4. A lot of similar stuff, but there's a few little differences that they like to throw in here. Okay, there we go. So let's start at the beginning. Speedy Auto Repairs uses job order costing system. The company's direct materials consist of replacement parts installed in the customer vehicles, and its direct labor consists of the mechanic's hourly rate wages. Speedy's overhead costs include various items such as the shop manager's salary, depreciation of equipment, utilities, insurance, and magazine subscriptions and refreshments for the waiting room. The company applies all of its overhead costs to jobs based on direct labor hours. So there's my allocation base. At the beginning of the year, it made the following estimates. So they give me these estimates for direct labor hours required to support the estimated output. So there's my estimated direct labor hours, my fixed overhead costs, and my variable per direct labor hour cost. So I put those all down here. So again, we're going to compute the predetermined overhead rate. So I'm going to see if I can put this all into one cell. Let's see if I can do this. So it's going to be equal to, open parentheses, let me think. So the fixed is A plus, open another parentheses, the variable cost, which is B, times X, the direct labor hours, close one parentheses, close another parentheses, divided by the estimated direct labor hours. Okay, I think I got enough parentheses. I think I did it all in the right order to get all the way to predetermined overhead rate. Yes. Okay. So again, you could figure out the top portion of that problem and then divide it by the direct labor hours if you don't want to try to put so many parentheses in your problem. But as time is of the essence, sometimes you may want to learn how to get it all like that. Okay, so that's required one. Required two. During the year, Mr. Wilkes brought in his vehicle to replace his brakes, spark plugs, and tires. The following information was available with respect to his job. So again, that's that information right here that they gave me, right, in required two. I just put it down here, 609 direct materials, 166 labor cost, direct labor hours used is 5. So I'm going to compute the total job cost. Now, this is not what we're going to charge the company. This is what it cost us to do the work. So they gave me direct materials. They gave me direct labor. Then overhead applied is going to be that 5 direct labor hours used times the predetermined overhead rate that we decided. So the total cost then is going to be the sum of those 3 numbers for this job. Okay, now here comes the tricky question that a lot of people get confused on. So we just remember required two, we figured out how much the job cost. So if that was all we charged in, then we would not make any money. So that's what a markup is how much are we going to mark up this cost so that we make money as a company. So I'll read required 3. If Speedy establishes its selling prices using a markup percentage of 50% of, which means multiply, its total job cost, which is what we just figured out, then how much would it have charged Mr. Wilkes? Round intermediate calculations to 2 decimal places. Okay. So a lot of times students just multiply 50% times that job for 425, and you just really lost money if that's how you're going to do it. First, we have to equals, we have to pay ourselves for the cost, the whole cost, plus, which is what a markup is, it's addition, plus that same cost, now we multiply by 50%. So we would charge him $1,275 so that our company makes some money, right? Yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. So that is question 4.